So when I gave a talk on Wednesday, I talked about this term spiritual bypassing. Um, that was coined by John Wellwood, one of my teachers in graduate school. And so we were going to go more deeply into a conversation about this term, spiritual bypassing.
And we wanted to offer a few definitions or one definition and then our own definition. So I'll read the definition um, that we found. Spiritual bypassing, using, quote, spiritual ideas and practices to sidestep personal, emotional, and unfinished business, end quote, to shore up a shaky sense of self, or to belittle basic needs, feelings, and developmental tasks. So uh, using those spiritual ideas to shore up this shaky sense of self, or, um, you know, petty feelings or juvenile impulses that we may have.
And as we were looking over this definition and a list or a part of a list we're going to talk about today, we realize that there's so much in reflective meditation. You read at the foundational level, at the way we talk to people about their sittings and the way we put the teachings into our book, Reflective Meditation, Cultivating Kindness and Curiosity in the Buddhist Company. It's like embedded in like everything we do, these views that sort of go against spiritual bypassing or make it more difficult at any rate.
Right. And chip away at the places that we do, because it's these are often tender spaces where we've been using spiritual ideals or practices that have helped us, but they haven't helped us yet. So we still want to believe in them. So we're not doing this like with a hammer. This is like a long-term chipping away process.
Right. And we all have, and we've talked about that before. We need aspirational and inspirational views to keep us on the path sometimes. But also, if we use them to bypass what's going on in our life that's challenging in the here and now, then we run into a whole other set of problems. So, meditation does provide these altered states of consciousness, or sometimes, the word we use in the Pali language, samadhi, that really do give us a break from the challenges of our life. We're not saying like, oh God, dig into all your hard stuff. Like don't get away from it. No, we're talking once again about a middle path, that these altered states in meditation really can restore us. They are a nice break. But if we don't come back to the challenges in our life, like I said, we've spiritually bypassed.
So we found a list. Nellie found a list um, of qualities or experiences that kind of would happen when you're spiritual bypassing. These are some things that you could find yourself doing, and we're going to read a few of them and talk about them. So the first one is being overly detached. When you are really divorcing yourself from your experience, from what troubles you, and that there's certain states that separate us and actually protect us from our experience. But then when we try to stay in that type of detachment all the time, it leads to, again, other problems of not being able to relate or connect to other people, to ourselves and our problems.
And one description of what we do at the end, the interview, if you will, is that we're saying, don't be. I'm interested in your experience. I don't, tell me about it. It's sort of the opposite of being detached. Like, tell me what went on. Oh, and you can tell me, the lofty things that went on, and you can tell me the very mundane. I'm interested in the shopping list also. We think that has value too. So we're really going against that tendency to detach.
Right. Right. You want to
Okay, yeah, the next bullet point that we lifted was being overly idealistic. So we've spoken to that a lot. We're super, I feel like I've got my radar up for that. I just like, yeah, when I hear people being overly idealistic, it bothers me. It really bothers me. Um,
Mm-hmm.
why don't you come in, Linda, and I'll come in again about this one.
Okay, well, because I was kind of going to jump to the third one. I'm going to
Okay,
bring
then
in
I'm
the
gonna,
being
okay.
I'm going to bring in the being overly compassionate because it's actually an ideal. It's a very high ideal that we can be compassionate all the time. So when somebody, is being highly idealistic and we're being very compassionate for them and really wanting to go with them, into kind of a narrative about compassion, and we can't really honor our own reactions or our own, authenticity of like, I don't agree with that or that bothers me. So that's where I was going from your statement, Nellie.
Uh-huh, uh-huh. And and then you're saying sort of not respecting our own boundaries,
Right,
being, that ties right in with being overly compassionate,
right,
right?
right.
Um,
And really losing the value of authenticity, which is so highly valued in our practice, honesty, self-honesty, and authenticity.
right, right. Um, but going back to idealistic, I got to go
Yeah,
back there, okay?
yeah,
I feel like the foundation, and a lot of, we have a document that we refer back to often, which is speaking about the foundations of reflective meditation. And I feel like one of them could be stated, is not now stated, is being realistic. Um, like, yes, idealistic and realistic are sort of opposite ends of a continuum. And like I said, we do need inspiration and aspiration. So I'm not saying, delete that for a very kind of dry realism, but what's really going on rather than what you wish was going on and what you are making
right.
up is going
Right. That's the kind of classic bypassing, right?
on. Right.
That's really a classic bypassing. I find as we're talking, Nellie, I feel kind of tender for the overly idealistic, and maybe it's because I've had that sense, that I come from that.
Uh-huh.
So I do feel often a sense of, oh, this is a place where there's something else going on, and maybe they don't know it yet. So it does actually make me quite curious about the places where we're overly idealistic in meditation.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. So Linda, when you say something else is going on, what are you pointing towards or imagining?
It Well, when you're bypassing something,
Right.
right? So if somebody is overly idealistic, I'm thinking, oh, there's something there that they're trying to get away from, or there's
Mhm.
something under that is more really bothering them.
Right.
Like, and so I feel tender for that because that's a place of pain, and
Right.
it's instinctual to get away from that.
Exactly. And we are not suggesting the opposite. We're not suggesting that you know, be in your pain when it's not, when the other term in psychology is when you need your defenses still.
Mhm. Right, right. Right. Are these, I think these are kind of defenses, right? Being overly detached, right? So yeah, we're just talking about it from
From the
another
more
angle.
spiritual angle, how the
Yeah,
spiritual lingo of how it may, or it's
right.
this, not just even the lingo, but the actual way it may play out.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. And that does lead to our last one, is pretending everything's okay when it's not. Um, that seems like really clear language that, you can't get away with that too much in our practice. You'll be questioned about it, or it will come up where we'll be interested in when you are, pretending it's okay, so to speak.
And that's what goes on in groups, spiritual groups, a lot. That's why all the abuses happened in spiritual groups. I think is there's a lot of people pretending that because they want to be a part of that
Right.
group because there's a benefit for them. A lot of pretending that everything is okay when it's not.
Yeah. Yeah. It's almost like a peer pressure that takes over the group, and a fear of rejection or being unloved, really core issues that we have as humans, that get tapped into at that point.
Right. And then just the fear of losing the spiritual path that goes with, that
And
goes
friends.
along with,
Yeah.
speaking up when you might lose your group, your path, but
So,
we encourage people to speak up when something is not okay for them in our groups.
right. We really try to counter that idea that you have to be okay with everything as it is.
Okay,
So
well, that's an introduction. We're going to talk about it more in the days to come, this Monday and Wednesday. And I think I must be the bell ringer now.